Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about AI and how it can be used to improve accessibility. And I'm going to go over some of the highlights from this year's AXCon, which is a accessibility conference that is run by DeQ. And I thought that the human-centered AI and accessibility talk with Preety Kumar, Dylan Barrell, and Ryan Bateman was very interesting with regards to this topic. And just to go over some key statistics that they discussed, approximately 1 in 6 people have a disability globally. So this is currently about 1.3 billion people worldwide. And 79% of decision making is influenced by people's friends and family. And the estimates are that every person with a disability is closely connected to approximately 4 other people in the world. So if you were to assume that a person can influence less than half of those people that they know, now you have approximately 2 billion people in this group, which means that 1/3 of the global population is concerned with accessibility. And that is why digital accessibility is now a global movement. And if we just look at the statistics from the conference itself, 126 countries, or approximately half the countries in the world, were represented at this year's AXCon, and about 80% of those people were first time attendees. And one of the things they went over was how they got to a policy of no more false positives in the work that they do. Because DeQ has been in the accessibility space for many years, and they had been developing their tool for about 12 years when they found that 50% of the issues that their tool was reporting were actually false. And if you look at this false positive rate, basically their accessibility tool was performing no better at accessibility testing than if you were to put monkeys in front of buttons and ask them to decide whether there was or was not an accessibility error. Their tool was no better than this example of monkeys doing the testing. And that was after 12 years of development. So this is why, at that point, that most developers were really just not involving themselves with accessibility, because the tools that were being used weren't very helpful in letting them know how they could improve their code for accessibility. So at that time, they decided that their goal would be to develop a model where they would have zero false positives. And this is something that they did in 2015. And so they reevaluated the entire rule engine and restricted to the rules that would be tested would only be those rules that would produce no false positives, and they found that this amounted to about 11 of the rules involved. And then they open sourced this rule engine, and that led to about 1 billion downloads, and then provided about 57% of the testing in an automated fashion. And who were the stakeholders involved with this work that they were doing? We have the people with disabilities. We have to look at what are the barriers that they are impacted by, and are they able to work around those barriers, or do they get stuck? And what they're dealing with, a major use case or a minor use case? Is it something that's really not that important, or something that really stops them from using a website? And is that error rare or pervasive? Is it something that everybody encounters? It's something that is affecting everybody, and it's more global, it's pervasive? Or is it something that doesn't happen very often? And then on the other side, we have businesses. And for businesses, how critical are the barriers? What is the risk to them if the people with disabilities hit a barrier on their business website? How does it affect their business? What is their risk? What is their risk of getting sued? What is their risk of losing money? Things that businesses are concerned about. And typically, on the business side, they are less concerned about implementing best practices in their website. They're more concerned about the bottom line. However, we're finding over time that user experience people are changing their mindset on this. That if you give customers a better experience, that is actually good for your business. And that includes people with disabilities. So this is something that's a little bit changing, that for businesses, that they are actually now more concerned with their customers having a good user experience, whether they have a disability or not. And then for the developers, the third part of these stakeholders, is how fast are they going to be able to get to the issues, find the things that are wrong, and how reliably can they manage these issues, and how can they maintain velocity, meaning that they can continue to work quickly while reducing the risk of bad code. Is the tool helping them continue to work fast while improving their code so it's less error prone? The results from all of this is that 15 of the rules, and this is out of 50 plus success criteria in the WCAG, 15 results in about 95% of all errors, and the rest, 35, results in 5% of the errors. And then you can go to the Q's automated accessibility testing coverage for more details on this, and I will include the link in the description. But here are some of the things they found. So they basically scanned 13,000 plus pages, found 300,000 issues with 0 false positives, and this was sites that were going through a first-time audit. And they were able to detect 57.38% of the total issues with automated testing. And there's just a note, they were looking for using a popular open source AXCON rules library, the AX core that we were talking about. They were looking for no false positive issues. And they looked at only HTML pages. And they spanned across various conformance standards, WCAG2 as well as WCAG 2.1 level A and level AA. So they used different rule criteria. 78% of the issues mapped to about 5 success criteria. So these top 5 issues, success criteria, accounted for over 78% of the total issues discovered, and the majority of these issues were discovered using their automated testing. And then they also listed the top 7 WCAG success criteria with the highest proportion of issues, and these were 3.1.1 language of the page, 4.1.1 parsing, 1.4.3 contrast minimum, 2.4.1 bypass blocks, 1.1.1 non-text content, 4.1.2 name role value, 1.3.1 info and relationships. And this is the stuff that we typically have been talking about as being like the common errors that really people have to think about. Are you declaring the language of your page? Are you providing a color palette that has the adequate level of contrast for people for low vision? Are you providing skip links so that people don't have to go, they can navigate to the part of the page that they want to go to without going through everything? With non-text content, is your media accessible? Are you providing transcripts? Are you captioning your video? Are you properly naming your buttons? Are you properly naming your sections? Are you telling the roles? Proper ARIA labeling, proper ARIA labels. These are the things that are the main things, and we've been talking about this in other talks, that you just need to deal with these, and you will get a lot of the errors if you just focus on these few success criteria. And then they went over the year-over-year trends in reduction of defects. So once they adopted this no false positive mantra, they found 2017 ARIA issues and color contrast became easier to identify and fix. They were seeing that these became things that people could start to minimize on their websites as problems. And then by 2021, keyboard navigation issues, page structure, and interact element issues became again easier to identify and fix. And also in 2021, that was when AI was actually considered mature enough for them to use in production. They had started using AI in 2018, so people may think that, oh, AI just popped up just recently, but that's not true. Many companies have been working with AI for many years already, but it's a learning curve. As the AI technology was developing, it got better and better. So in 2021, they were able to leverage AI in production in their tool. And of course, now everybody has overhyped AI's ability. But what they say is that they feel AI can be used to help with accessibility, but you have to approach it in a certain way. And the way they've decided to approach it is to use AI in accessibility by using it in line with their mission of digital equality. What do they mean by digital equality? How are they using AI? What are they measuring its success by? What are Google's AI principles that we should measure the success of AI against? AI should be socially beneficial. It should avoid creating or reinforcing unfair bias. It should be built and tested for safety. It should be accountable to the people. It should incorporate the privacy design principles. And it should uphold the highest standards of scientific excellence. And it should be made available for uses that accord with these principles. And just to build on what they're talking about, what does it mean to be socially beneficial? Thing socially beneficial. So they gave a couple of examples. So would it be socially beneficial to make legal services affordable? Make autonomous vehicles that can transport goods across the country or the world more efficiently? Would it be socially beneficial to automate all customer service interactions? Would it be socially beneficial to give every student a dedicated teacher? Would it be socially beneficial to automate border protection? Maybe some of these seem, well, of course, you'd want to making legal services affordable would be great. The quality of the legal services that are being provided at that affordable nature, is it good legal services? Like, you have to look at these more clearly. If we make autonomous vehicles transport goods across the country and the world, that means there's a lot of people that are going to lose their jobs that are currently involved in this space and are responsible for currently transporting goods. And if you automate all cross customer service interactions, I think there's many people that would say that they hate talking to these automated bots, that they don't get the customer service that they need by talking to these bots. The bots don't understand what they're trying to do. Typically, when I call customer service, first thing I'll say is I want to talk to a representative. I don't want to sit through the little prompts. So some of this there's an argument probably for both sides for everything. And then you have to figure out is this something that's truly beneficial to society? So these are just examples. We're not going to solve this today. And then so for them, the only way to evaluate what is good or not good a use of AI was to measure it again against their mission, which is digital equality. So then they have to define what do they mean by digital equality. What they feel is, how can AI help achieve digital equality? It can help people with disabilities by directly assisting them to do things they cannot do today. It will make it easier to create accessible digital experiences, and it'll make it easier for everybody to fully participate in a digital online experience and achieve digital equality. So how can we propagate the good uses of AI and at the same time not give traction to the not so good uses of AI? One of the things they decided on is that good AI for digital equality is when humans are still in control of AI. That's what they mean by human-centered AI. So AI that's not going to replace you, but instead AI that's going to make you more effective. And in order to do this, everything needs to be more transparent. When AI is being used, people need to know that AI is being used, and people need to have control over the results so that the results are appropriate. And in this way, you will avoid any sort of false expectations. And again, they have named this human-centric artificial intelligence. And we're going to go into a demo of an AI tool, and that's alt text AI. So here I am in my alt text AI account, and it is an area where you can upload images and will automatically generate the alt text. There's also an option to scrape a page, and you can also import like a large CSV of multiple images. You can add from Dropbox and Pinterest and also from Cloudinary. And once you generate the alt text, you can also export it, your image library or whatnot, so that you can have a list as well. And if you go to add image, you basically can either put the URL of the image from a website, or you can upload the file. You can name the file, and then there's different options, language options for the alt text. And then if you need to do something with e-commerce, or if you want to use particular keywords in the generated alt text and you want to modify using ChatGPT, you can do these special options. I've only really used it with the regular usage, and I have only really used English. I haven't tried other languages. Look at some of the examples of what the alt text that it generates. And when I first started using this app, the alt text was very basic and it's sometimes not particularly helpful. But over time, it's barely been in production now or use for over a year, and they've really improved. They used to have a human review option, and they actually deprecated the functionality mainly because it wasn't being used. You buy credits, and it's 1 credit per 1 photo exchange. For the human review, you would use 15 credits to get a person to review the image and put their input. And I tried it on some images, and I found that because the images are being examined without context, the human review was very limited in adding anything to this description. And in the end, I was the best human review because I knew how the image was going to be used in context. But I've been using the app for quite a while, generating images, alt text for various images for different projects. And just to show you, so here's an image that I recently uploaded. You could see it's an oil painting of a landscape, and the generated alt text for this image is a painting depicting a serene lakeside scene. The foreground features a grassy and earthy tones with bushes. A small solitary tree stands near the water's edge. The expansive lake is in varying shades of blue with distant green foliage along the horizon under a light clouded sky. I think this could work for this particular image. I don't have issues with the text that was generated. If I knew more about the image, I could be more specific about the location of the image. I would have to consult with the person who created the image to get that information. But I think in terms of whether this is a lake or a shore, hard to know. I think the reason it interpreted as a lake is because it appears enclosed, but it could actually be more of an open waterway, and that could be an error. And just to show you how human review is still necessary on the alt text generation, but although improving, let's look at this image, the text for it. So it's right here. So let's bring up the image again. And oil painting of serene, snowy landscape. The foreground features snow-covered fields with faint patches of grass peeking through. In the background, there is a line of blurred buildings under a pale blue sky, indicating a distant town or settlement. The scene exudes a calm, wintry atmosphere. So it's actually mistaking the white areas for snow, but in reality, I know that this painting is a painting of salt flats. The water evaporates and it leaves the salt flats, and it's whitish, so it's not really snow. So I know this. What it interprets as a town is probably more of an industrial area, just considering what's depicted in the foreground. I would probably say this is more of a cloudy sky. It does exude a calm atmosphere. I think I would just remove any reference to snow and winter, and then it could work as the alternative text for this image. So that is alt text. Alt text AI also has a bulk image generation feature for WordPress, It also integrates with Shopify. I've tried the WordPress feature and it's able to generate hundreds of alt text for hundreds of images in a few minutes, and it takes me longer to go through that text, just as I did here, to correct anything that's incorrect. And like I said, the way AI is right now is it just needs a human review. You can't use it independently, just assuming it's going to produce perfect alternative text for every image. You have to look at it, you have to edit it, and make sure that the alt text is generating is correct, and not just directly use it. But I think over time it will improve. And then another example that we have is the Be My Eyes app for iOS. So what is the Be My Eyes app? Be My Eyes can connect you with a live attendant to help you, but now it has this AI engine that can also describe the images. And as an example, they were showing how if you're trying to do the task of sorting your mail using the app can not only tell you where the letters came from, it can tell you that the address is behind a clear window, it can tell you the postmark date, it can tell you that the legibility of the text is maybe too faint, so it can recognize textures, and it can also tell you if something is upside down, which is actually very important for people who are blind to know that something they're looking at is upside down. And if you walk out the door using the app, you can actually take a picture and then it can tell you whether the sky is clear, is it winter or spring, the sun is shining, it's raining, or whatever. These were some of the responses from people who are actual users. I'm really excited about where AI is going. Having the choice between AI to assist me or a volunteer is very powerful. And I only see more great things coming from both human assistance and artificial intelligence. Because when the Be My Eyes app was only using human beings to assist people as their eyes, there were a lot of privacy issues with this, to ask another human being for help to help you because you can't see. But that means this other person is involved in your business. And so having the option now to use AI to help them is actually helping with privacy issues. And just sometimes you don't want to get another person involved in what you're trying to do. And so this gives the user an option. They can continue to use the human attendant or they can use AI. So it gives them more options. And Patrick Sturdivant from the talk said, if there's biases in these models, then the description is going to reflect a bias. But I think putting the human in control allows us to get life-changing benefits in a richness of human experience. And this sort of capability not only covers images, it extends itself to music, to combinations of images and sound as well. So I think we should be really excited about the helpful human-centric uses of this sort of technology. So some of the use examples: auto-generating text that a writer can edit, build technology into a current assistive technology so that on command a description can be generated if it's missing, or the media can be examined for further richer information. And a future use case is asking real-time questions about the images, video, audio that really enhance their experience. Another plugin that was discussed was the NVDA, which is a popular screen reader, non-visual desktop access, and NVDA plugin AI content descriptor. So similar to Be My Eyes, it provides richer description to enhance the digital experience. So there's another AI generator that can help with descriptions. So when is there harm with these types of tools? So the auto generation of text, if you're not telling the user that it's AI, that is important, because we know AI is still in process of development, and AI can hallucinate, so it can actually make up answers, it can create false answers, and so it's subject to error. There's variation as well. If you ask it several times to do the same thing over and over again, it's going to give you a different response sometimes. The user should be aware that AI is being used, so that way they can understand that the response that they're getting is possibly prone to error, and they can maybe be misinformed. So that gives them the knowledge to take whatever they're getting from the tool with a grain of salt, and they can make their own judgments. So it's important to let people know when AI is being used. And similarly, if you're allowing a browser to auto-generate a text without telling the user that the source is AI, again, they need to understand that error and misinformation can be part of the response, and they can use their judgment. And this kind of breaks the idea of transparency, which is important to this idea of digital equality, that we are transparent about what we're trying to do. And the areas that can be enhanced by AI are object detection, speech to text to speech technologies, image descriptions, using large language models for code generation or remediation, and using large language models to answer questions to help educate about accessibility. If you're unfamiliar with object detection, DeQ does have an object detection model based on current open source models that allow it to detect objects within a user interface and identify them. So it basically scans a web and can identify what are the objects on that page. So it can tell what's the navigation bar, what are the individual menu items, links, what are buttons, inputs, and search fields. And here is an example of that. So possible enhancements to this technology are that you could actually raise issues in real time regarding the nature of on-screen objects, determine whether something's a button or a link. If some interactive element doesn't have proper semantic markup, that can be fixed. Tables and the accessibility of tables is always a difficult area. That can be improved. What's data and what's a header cell? And rather than years of learning, testers can become accessibility experts, including these complex elements, even if they have had really no prior training. So as this automation improves, then even people that really haven't had the years of accessibility training can identify areas that can be problems and then fix those issues. So what about the area of code regeneration and remediation? So one thing, again, we need to reiterate is that AI hallucinates. So that means results that are delivered are considered statistically relevant. So it's what the large language models are doing, are predicting what is the next correct word based on its understanding of this knowledge base that it's been trained on. So it's giving you the statistically relevant response, but that response doesn't mean that it's necessarily accurate or good. So it could give you a false response or a bad response. They went into an example where a developer intended to generate a tab navigation, and the ChatGPT 3.5 markup was wrong, especially with regards to ARIA, and the errors that it generated would create issues for the screen reader user. It's because ChatGPT was trained on all the code that is available, but much of the available code is inaccessible. You end up with varying results and different types of errors. So set your expectations accordingly and don't necessarily stop using AI because you could get wrong results, but just understand that the code generated may not be accurate. So it's still important to have a working knowledge of code to know when the code that you're being given by an AI model is possibly erroneous. GitHub is actually leveraging AI technology to aid with accessibility, and they are doing really well because they are trying to train the large language models on accessible code. So existing accessible code as opposed to the huge code base of some good code and some bad code. So because they're trying to train and use people that know, then the AI, the hope is that eventually the tool that they're creating will create fully accessible code. Fei Li from Stanford says, imagine a world in which AI is going to make us work more productively, live longer, and have cleaner energy. So AI does have potential to make the lives of people with disabilities much richer, but we need to make sure we are paying attention to how the technology is being used. We must promote the good uses of this technology while discouraging the harmful use of this technology.